Hey everybody, welcome to the Ridge Community Church, specifically our online service for the week. My name's Jody. I'm one of the pastors serving on staff here. Great to be with you digitally wherever you're joining us from this week. And hey, if you are brand new, I want to start with a special shout out to you. If you want to connect with us, we'd love to connect with you. You can jump in either by texting us, if that's easiest, or just grab your phone, scan the QR code that you see on the screen right now, and that'll take you right to our Let's Connect form. Fill out as much as you're comfortable with, and we can't wait to get to know a little bit more about who you are and where you're joining us from today. So I want to let you know that in the last few weeks, we have been together working a ton and talking a ton about the pace of our life. And not just the pace, but how that impacts the quality of our life too. They are really connected, and God's got plans for both of those things. But before we get into all of that, I'm really struggling with this because pace and just overcommitment is something I really have to work on personally. I thought I would start to see if maybe you are in the same boat I am with a game called This or That. So I'm going to give you a few examples of pace of life stuff. And if you are on YouTube, Kyle's in our chat there. So, tell him, are you doing this or that? And we'll play together. Okay, so first one, here we go. Are you doing this or that? If there is a long line at the drive-thru, do you do this? Do you just wait in the line? Or do you do that? Do you park and go in and see if you can beat the line? And then you kind of track where the car that you would have been behind in the drive-thru is. And if you beat them when you come out, I do that all the time. Okay, so this or that. Number 2, at the store, do you do this? Do you determine which cashier is checking people out faster and make a point to be in that line? Or do you do that? Just go with whatever line you happen to walk into. Okay, I used to be a cashier in high school, so I know not all cashiers are created equal. I always try to eval their skills and get in the good, fast lane. Okay, last one, do you do this or that? When you're merging on the freeway, do you speed up and just kind of ignore whoever is around you? Do you do this? Or do you do that? Do you just wave people in and slow and let them merge and glad they use your blinker and everything? I don't do that. I am definitely like the speed up and hope they don't realize I'm going to plow right past them kind of person. So as you can see, I might have a wee bit of trouble with time management. What I find myself doing all the time is just overcommitting, and then I stress out because I'm trying to figure out the ways I can meet all these commitments without enough time and margin to get them done in a healthy way. So I'm not really loving my life in those moments. And even worse than that is I feel bad because the people around me read the stress and they don't love being in my life in those moments either. So if that's something you can relate to, maybe you have your own version of it. Man, you are at the right place at the right time because we're entering week 4 of a series we've been doing called How to Love Your Life. And we're getting all of these ideas from God of what he actually says and wants for us when it comes to the pace of our life. So I am hoping that we can all learn a little bit more by hearing from him again this week. But before we get to our message, we're just going to settle in and give our heads and our hearts time to connect with God and prepare. And one of the best ways we love to do that is through music. So we're going to head into our Greenfield Auditorium and hear from our band.
Hands together again. Starts a little like this. Yeah. Let praise be a weapon that silences the enemy. Let praise be a weapon that conquers all anxiety. Let it rise. Let praise arise. We sing your name in the dark and it changes everything. We sing with all we are and we claim your victory. Let it rise. Let it rise. Let praise arise. We'll see you break down every wall. We'll watch the giants fall. Fear cannot survive when we praise you. The God of breakthroughs on our side. Forever lift him high. With all creation cry, God we praise you. Oh, we praise you. Oh, freedom feels like. This is what heaven sounds like. We praise you, we praise you. This is what living looks like. This is what freedom feels like. This is what heaven sounds like. We praise you, we praise you. This is what heaven looks like. This is what freedom feels like. This is what heaven sounds like. We praise you, we praise you. This is what heaven looks like. This is what freedom feels like. This is what heaven sounds like. We praise you, we praise. We'll see you break down every wall. We'll watch the giants fall. Fear cannot survive when we praise you. The God of breakthroughs on our side. Forever lift him high. With all creation cry, God, we praise you. We'll see you break down every wall. We'll watch the giants fall. Fear cannot survive when we praise you. The God of breakthroughs on our side. Forever lift him high. With all creation cry, God, we praise you. Oh, we praise you. Oh, we praise you. Oh, we praise you. Oh, we praise you. Yeah.
I love the energy of that song. It just gets me going. Hopefully you like the vibe of it too. Hey, before we get to the message this week, I just wanted to pause for a second and share a little bit about you, about this guy we've been coming to know around here. His name is Michael. And the reason I want to share a little bit of his story with you is just because I think you might hear a little bit or see a little bit of yourself in him. And so this is a little bit about Michael. Today, Michael is in a Ridge group. He is serving on a team. He's been baptized. He's even making this big effort to live his faith out every day. And he says he's placing each day in God's hands. Oh, I love that. Now, here's the thing. That may sound lofty. It may even, based on where you're at right now, it may even feel impossible for you. But you should know that it really wasn't that long ago that Michael was just kind of a stranger around here at the Ridge. Here's what happened. He and his girlfriend, Emily, they'd been coming on and off just casually for a while, but they came to this point where they decided they were ready to know people and also to be known. It was time for them to get connected. And maybe you felt this way too, like you want a little bit more, you're just not sure how or where you need to go to get it. And around here, when you feel like that, we want you to party, specifically party with us. Okay, really, when we hear anybody telling us that they feel this struggle happening where they aren't sure and they want to do more than just dip a toe in the water, we say, come to our after party. Now, our after parties are these fun hangout events that we host here on our Greenfield campus location, where I'm broadcasting to you live from right now. And it's just a time of connecting. We eat lunch together, and you get to hear a little bit more about the Ridge, and more importantly, we get to find out a little bit more about you. So Michael and his girlfriend, Emily, attended an after party, and that's where it all kicked in for them. This is what Michael says. He says, what I remember most about the experience was how genuinely warm and inviting the staff that ran the event were. They truly went above and beyond to answer any questions, answer any concerns you may have had, and then, get this, to make you feel you were instantly accepted. We also got to hear a bit from the staff themselves about their experiences with deciding to come to the Ridge while we were sitting for lunch together. Overall, I just felt this was a great way to make us feel like we finally had somewhere we could belong. Just awesome. So hey, if you are looking for something similar, I just want to invite you to consider, even for a week, to go from online to attending here in person. It's a great way of giving us a test drive, if you will. All you need to do is RSVP using the link you see on your screen right now, because we want to make sure to have lunch ready and waiting for you. And then when you come to the after party, I'll be there. The crew that's serving online right now is going to be there. So say hi. We'd love to meet you and introduce yourself to us. We can't wait. Well, you know, when you give faithfully and generously here at the Ridge every week, you are partnering with God as he brings the hope of Jesus into more homes just like Michael's and Emily's, who we just got to hear a little bit of their story. And so you can begin your giving process now by using the information that's on your screen. But I would just like to interrupt you before you get started to let you know a little bit about what's going on behind the scenes right now. From a staff perspective, we're working on something we're really excited about. Two things, actually. The first is getting your annual giving statements ready from 2021. You obviously are going to need those for tax reasons, so we've got those prepped for you. And then the more exciting thing, I guess, for us as a staff is that we've been working on these annual reports for the last year. And it's just an awesome time to really see with infographics and like in print all God has been doing through our church. And we want to make sure we get yours to you, which means we need your actual mailing address because we're going to send you a real piece of mail, even in a digital world. So on our giving page, you're going to see a link there that says update my address. Or maybe you've never given us your address, we only have your email. Either way, we would love to be able to send you a copy of the annual report. So I have that bug in your ear now. So you can go do that today, right now, or at any time this week, and we'd be happy to send you your copy. So now that you know that, you're already hopefully on our giving page, and we can just pause for a moment, focusing on God, and bring our offerings to him together. Let's do that now.
Hey, as we continue in our time together, we're just going to take one more moment to just kind of allow God to speak to us. And as we walk through life, as we have our, different experiences learning about God, there's kind of these formative moments where we learn a truth about God, or maybe learn a truth about God in a new way that we never understood it before. And this song actually was a moment like that for me. And so I just encourage you to allow God to speak to you. These are powerful words actually from God's perspective to us, just shedding light on our relationship and how when we move so quickly through life, we can easily miss true life in him. So Mark's going to share a little more in just a moment, but for now, let's pause, lean in, and allow him to speak to us.
This chest is full of memories of gold and silver tears. I'll give you more to own than all of this, and I'll give you more than years. For you were once a child of innocence, and I see you just the same. Your burdens couldn't win or lose a thing. Oh, I tell you once again, but you're always on the run. Find your heart now. Whoa. You can trust in love again. Whoa. Slow your breath down, just take it slow. Find your smile now. Whoa. You can trust in love again. Whoa. If you leave, I'll still be close to you. When all your fears rain down, well, I'll take you back 1,000 times again, and I'll take you trust and love again. I feel the torn about you.
Well, it's great to be with everybody here, and I also want to say a huge welcome to all you who are joining us online. We love you guys and our growing online community. And hey, my name is Mark, if we've never met, and I'm one of the pastors here on staff. And I can't believe it. It is already the first month of 2022 is almost in the books. I mean, man, how time flies. And so here we are, we're off and running, and I actually want to begin with a very deep question for you. Why do they have speed limits on the road? I mean, notice I didn't say, do you obey the speed limits on the road? Because I know the answer to that. I see you out there driving, And here's the thing. I'm not judging because I also struggle with driving within the speed limits. I actually have 7 speeding tickets, and that doesn't include just the number of warnings I got, which would actually put me into way beyond double digits as far as that's concerned. Actually, a few weeks ago, I was done with Thursday night service, and I was driving on 76th Street. I was heading home, and I was just kind of rehashing the message in my mind, which I always do, is kind of going over it, how it went and all that stuff. And I wasn't really paying attention to how fast I was going until I looked at the speedometer, and I was going 55 on 76. And then all of a sudden, cop pulls out, which I wasn't looking for, flashes the lights on, and he pulls me over right in front of Chick-fil-A, where my boys just happened to be working at that time. And so he pulls me over, and he gets out of the car. He's a really nice officer. He comes over, and he asks the question he always asks, hey, do you know why I pulled you over? Now, I'm a man of the cloth, okay? And so I can't lie to him or try to come up with an excuse. And so I say, speeding? And he goes, no, I pulled you over because you didn't have your lights on. And he reaches in the car, and he flips the button, and he turns the light on. I guess I must have bumped it when I was getting in the car, and so I turned the automatic thing on, and I guess I had been driving without my lights on for about a week up to that time. And then he just gets in the car and he drives away. And I thought, well, you know what? Of all the times I've been pulled over, that's a first for me. Now, why do we have speed limits on the road? Because going faster than you should is dangerous to you and to others. And just a little add-on to that. Driving without your lights on at night is also dangerous too. Now, today we are in week 4 of a 5-week series we are calling How to Love Your Life. And the big idea of this series is something that I hope becomes a theme for not just your life and your family individually, but it becomes a theme for our entire church. And it's found in 2 words, and these 2 words that we are not very good at, and it's in these 2 words right here. Slow down. Slow down. Now, the reality is that most of us have bought into the culture's view that the faster we go, the better things are. I mean, you think about this. We miss a pane on a revolving door and we get frustrated. We want fast food. We want same-day shipping. We want express lanes. We want 5G. You see, we want things to happen fast, and as a result, and this is the part that we don't realize, that as things continue to go faster, we just continue to live our lives faster. But God has intentionally put speed limits on the way that we are to live our lives, because God knows that the faster we go, the more dangerous it can be to us and to other people. And do you know what can be the most dangerous part in it is that we can't love our lives in a hurry because we can't love in a hurry. And we've been saying this throughout the series. We've been saying that love and hurry are incompatible with each other. In fact, for some of you, if you would just slow down a bit, this might actually be enough to save your marriage. It can allow you to deepen relationship with your kids. It can maybe form a friendship that you have wanted to have for a very long time. It will help your connection with God grow. And I think these are all things that we want and need in our life. And so what we've been doing over the course of this series is that we've actually been looking at the life of Jesus, and we've been looking at certain rhythms and practices that are a part of his life that are meant to be a part of our life, because he is the ultimate example of how we were meant to live and are meant to live our lives. And as we've gone throughout the series, we've been looking at the life of Jesus, and we've been saying, hey, this is how Jesus lived. Jesus was slow and productive. That he was never in a hurry, even though he had all these demands on us, more demands than any of us would ever have with our lives. And yet he was the most productive person in all of history. Here's what Jesus said to a group of people who were living way beyond God's speed limit for their lives. And these words, we've been reading them every week. These are the words that are driving our entire series. And I hope, and I've been saying this throughout the series, I hope some of you, this will be a screensaver for you. I hope some of you will memorize these words. Here's what Jesus said, not only to this group of people, but he says the very same thing to us today. He says, come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me. You know, we hear slow down and we think that means don't be productive, don't get things done, be lazy, be apathetic. But a yoke was a tool that was used for work. And so Jesus says, I want you to learn from me, and if you learn from me and do it with me, you'll actually be more productive. And then he says, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. Now, this word here, souls, your souls. Now, what does Jesus mean by that? Well, today what I want to do is I want to accomplish a few things. I want to first look at, why does Jesus talk about your soul? And why is that important? And what does that mean in the whole grand scheme of things and what we're talking about? And then what we're going to do is we're going to look at some examples from Jesus' life that when we look at, they'll let us know or show us what does it mean to really live within God's speed limit for our lives. And I want you, when we look at these things, I want you to see these things as benefits to our lives. You're going to see you're going to bring so much value to our lives. And then I'm going to wrap it up by challenging you to apply a spiritual discipline that I would bet that most of us have never heard of, and we're not going to like initially, but it goes a long way in helping us slow down. So Jesus says, I will help you find rest for your souls. Most of us, when we think of souls, we think that immaterial part of us, that when we die, there's like this vapory version of ourselves that rises above us, and this is the part that lives on after we die. But this actually is not what Jesus is talking about when he talks about our soul. Let me put up this picture diagram. And this diagram was actually done by a USC professor and theologian. His name is Dallas Willard. He's one of my favorites. I use him quite often. And so Dallas is trying to show us that back then, how they actually saw what makes a person a person. So this was back, and I say back then, back in Jesus' day. And so it starts with the will. And our will, this is our ability to say yes or no. This is our ability to make decisions and the freedom to make decisions. I mean, this is what makes you, you, and no one else. And in the ancient world, they would use the words here, heart and spirit, and they would use them interchangeably. And in the New Testament, when they would use it, this would just emphasize that this meant that this was at the core of who you are. And then the next layer here is our mind. And the mind consists of not only the thoughts that we have, but also the feelings that we have. In fact, when we describe a person, for the most part, this is the layer that we're really describing. You know, we'll often say things like, she's a happy person, he's an angry person, okay? When we do that, we're describing that layer. And then there's the body, and that one's, it's kind of obvious, but our body is made up of really habits and appetites. And what's really interesting is the body is so powerful and so complex that most of our behavior we actually outsource to habits. We do things and we don't even realize we're doing them because it is a habit. For example, when I had to teach my twin boys how to tie a tie, and I know what you're thinking, do you actually own a tie? I own a tie, okay. And when I taught them how to tie a tie, listen, I couldn't tell them how to do it. I actually had to show them how to do it because, I just know how to do it, and so I just showed them how to do it. Now, Jesus understood this. And so he would talk about this all the time. In fact, there's this one time where Jesus said, when it comes to giving, don't let your left hand know what your right hand is doing. And here's what he's saying. In other words, when it comes to generosity, it should be such a habit in your life that when you give, you don't think, oh, I'm being a generous person now. That you don't even think about it because it's just what you do. Now, what's interesting, when we think about sin is where it really begins to have a huge negative impact on our life. Because what happens is sin gets into our habits, and we don't even know it because we just kind of default to those habits, and it becomes normal for us. But then there is this part right up here, the soul. And the soul is what integrates the will, the mind, and the body. I want you to think of the soul as like the operating system in a computer. It's the glue that just holds it all together. And so our soul, here's what our soul seeks. Our soul seeks connection, integration, and harmony. And so when you think about the soul is the deepest part of you, but the soul encompasses the whole person. And so when a person has a healthy soul, what that means is this. It means that there is complete harmony between all the different entities of our life. Now, here's where our pace of life can be so devastating for us. When we live beyond God's designed speed limit for our life, we live at odds with how God created us to live. And it negatively impacts every aspect of our life. You see, it negatively impacts our body, because we can only go at that pace for so long until eventually something starts to happen with our body. And so as a result, we experience just negative results of that physically. And then when it comes to our mind, we're kind of living at this fast pace. We're living at this fast pace. And then it creates stress and anxiety, and it creates unhealthy emotions in our lives. And then it gets all the way down here to the will. And now we can't make good decisions because we're not in a good place. Because a tired and hurried soul means you no longer have a healthy center that organizes your life. Most of us, because of the pace of our life, we are unhealthy emotionally, we're unhealthy mentally, and we're spiritually shallow. We aren't the best versions of ourselves. And so Jesus comes along and he says, hey, listen, learn to do it with me. Follow my example, and I will help you find rest for your souls. In other words, it's his way of saying, hey, I will help you harmonize the whole you. I will help you live in sync with how God created you to live in this world. And here's the thing, it's not until all of us right here is in sync with one another that we can truly love our lives. And so Jesus says, I'll help you find that. Now, let me shift gears for a minute. I want to shift gears, and I want to talk about 3 examples that we see play out in the life of Jesus that will help us know, to help us understand when we're living within the speed limits that God has designed us to live in. This is how we can begin to tell when our soul is at rest, when we're actually finding rest and we're productive all at the same time. So we're going to look at 3 of them. Here's the first one. Jesus lived slow enough where that he was fully present with people. When you look at the life of Jesus and you read the Gospels, you see that no matter who he was with, whether he was healing someone with leprosy or he was at someone's home and sharing a meal with them, he was fully present in the moment. You see, hurried people are often distracted people. And what we need to realize is that everything is intentionally designed to distract us. There was a recent study done that showed that the average iPhone user touches their phone, and this is an average, 2,617 times a day. Now, I know some of you are really high achievers, okay, with that, and some of you are not as high achievers, but they also showed that we are on our phones an average of 2.5 hours a day. Another study was done that showed that millennials actually double both of those things on average. Sean Parker, who was the first president of Facebook, He recently called himself a conscientious objector of social media now. And in an interview that he had with Access, he admitted the goal when it comes to developing applications like Facebook. Listen to what he says here. He says, how do we consume as much of your time and conscious attention as possible? And so he just says, okay, here's the goal with when we create applications on social media. And then he says this, and that means that we need to sort of give you a little dopamine hit every once in a while because someone liked or commented on a photo or a post or whatever. And that's going to get you to contribute more content. And then just listen to the cycle that they're trying to get us on. And that's going to get you more likes and comments. It's a social validation feedback loop. Exactly the kind of thing that a hacker like myself would come up with because you're exploiting a vulnerability in human psychology. And that's just kind of chilling when you read that thing. But media companies know, and any company for that matter knows, that they can get your money if they get your attention. And so everything is designed to just distract us and keep distracting us. You see, hurried people have a very difficult time being fully present. And the reason why they have a hard time being fully present is because their mind is in two places all at the same time. They're in one place, but they're also thinking ahead to the next moment. And that's just where their mind goes. You know, I said this in week 1, that this is very convicting for me because I have countless stories where I'm with my wife and my kids physically, but I'm not there mentally. And so we'll be having a conversation. I'll be like, oh yeah, oh sure, yeah, oh that's great, oh good job, you know. And then I'll say something or ask something. I'll be like, hey Dad, I just said that to you a couple minutes ago. I was just checking to see if you knew yourself and all that stuff. And yeah, I'm there physically, but I'm not there fully mentally. And this is so challenging for all of us because we love to be busy. We just love to fill our time. In fact, we said this in week 1 as well. We even brag about it, but we also say, you know what, I'm just busy. But let me get you inside the mind of someone, and maybe that someone is you, who struggles with this whole idea. Here's how their mind works. And these words are all the same, but the details that lead to these words might be a little bit different for everybody. That busyness leads to productivity, that's what we think. And then productivity leads to recognition, whatever recognition that you're looking for. And then recognition leads to success, whatever success you are looking for. But let me ask you this. What if you are pursuing success in all the wrong things? What if in your hurry for success, your life just starts becoming a blur and you're missing out on all the deep relationships that God has intended for you? You know, here's the secret to experiencing joy, and it's a very, very simple secret. Here's the secret. Just be fully present in the moment. And the more present you are in the now, the more joy you will begin to tap into in your life. And so the first thing we see that Jesus did is he was fully present in the moment. Now, if we can begin to experience that, we'll experience this second thing that we see from the life of Jesus. And that's this: Jesus slowed down enough to have deep conversations with people. You know, I believe the bar is so low here in our culture that just pausing to show genuine interest in someone right now is such a big deal to someone. A few weeks ago, I was at a sports bar that my wife Donna and I we go to on most Friday nights. And we've been going there for years, and so, we know all the regulars and all this stuff. But this Friday night was a little bit different because Donna had to work late, and so she was going to meet me out there. And so I went out there by myself before she got there, and I was sitting there, and I get this text message from a guy named Steve. Now, Steve is not his real name, but we have gotten to know Steve over the last year, and Steve is such a great guy. He's a single guy. He's about in his mid to late 20s, and he's an atheist. And so I get this text from him, and he says, "Hey, are you there? If so, I'm on my way." And I get this text. I'm thinking, this is kind of an odd text. Steve never sends me texts like this. I mean, I don't know if you know this or not, but most atheists don't want to spend Friday nights with a pastor. And so I'm getting this text. I'm like, okay. So Steve eventually shows up. And he sits down next to me, and here's what I do. I just begin to ask him questions about his family, his job, the holidays that are coming up. And so, he's answering all these questions. Well, eventually Donna gets here, and then gets there. And then Donna sits on the other side of him, so we got him surrounded. He ain't get out of here now, we got the atheists around us, And no, so we just sit down, and then, she's asking him questions. And just for the next 90 minutes, Steve is just, opening up about his life, and it was such a great time for us. And I drove away from there. I'm just thinking, how many times have I just missed out on deep conversations with people, significant conversations with people, all because I'm just too busy to take the time to do so? Because Jesus was fully present with people, he often had deep conversations with people. There was this one time where he decided to have a conversation with a Samaritan woman. And that was a no-no, culturally speaking, on two fronts. The first front was that Jews did not talk to Samaritans. They hated Samaritans. And the second front is that Jesus was a religious male, and they weren't supposed to connect with irreligious females. But Jesus ignores the cultural no-nos, and he strikes up a conversation with her. And he leads with a question. And after he leads with this question, here's how she responds to him. She says, the Samaritan woman said to him, "You are a Jew, and I am and here's the cultural no-nos, a Samaritan. You're not supposed to talk to me, woman, and you're not supposed to talk to me because of that. How can you ask me for a drink?" And then John has to tell us, for Jews do not associate with Samaritans. And so Jesus ignores the cultural no-nos, and he just continues to have this conversation. It didn't deter him. And we see from this conversation just this interesting progression that happens. The first thing is that she sees Jesus as just a Jewish man. And then as the conversation continues, it escalates to where she sees that he might be a prophet. And then it gets to the point in the conversation where she sees he's actually the Savior of the world. And she runs back to her village and she goes, "Hey, you got to come and see this guy." And then John records what happened. It says, many of the Samaritans from the town believed in him, Jesus, who is a Jew, being the Savior of the world, because of the woman's testimony. And here's her testimony. "He told me everything I ever did." And this all happened because Jesus slowed down. And because he slowed down, he was able to take the time to have a conversation. One conversation, I don't think we think about this that much because we're just going. One conversation can make a monumental difference in someone's life. I would bet most of us have a story where we can go back to a single conversation, and that conversation, whether for the good or for the bad, changed the trajectory of our entire life. And many of Jesus' conversations, they were very brief, but they were life-changing for them. Deep conversation is so rare nowadays because we're going, and so we don't have the time to do it. And as a result, we stay shallow. And as a result, our relationships stay shallow. Now, just a side note. If you follow Jesus, you know that we talk a lot about we want every single person investing in your one. And your one, if you're new, your one is any person in our life who we care about who doesn't follow Jesus. And one of the biggest fears that many of us have is like, well, I don't really know what to say. And what if I say the wrong thing and I mess it up and all that stuff? But we should learn an important lesson from Jesus. And here's the lesson. One of the best things that we can do to help our ones take steps on their faith journey is to just ask questions and then sit back and listen. Show genuine concern because you have genuine concern, and ask about their story and their religious upbringing and their background, and just listen to them open up their heart to you. I'm telling you, if you do this, you will develop such deep trust in a very quick way. And you'll have doors open up to you that you thought you'd never have open to you, all because you took the time, and you have to slow down to do this, you took the time to have significant conversations with someone. Final thing, we see that Jesus slowed down enough that he could see a person's needs. Now, we have needs all around us. But most of us, because of the pace of life that we're living right now, we don't even notice the needs around us. But one of the ways we realize that we're starting to live within God's speed limit for our lives is that we will begin to notice needs that we didn't notice before. As I said earlier, Jesus was in high demand. And when you see his life, you'll see even in the high demand that we just see him listening to people. And as we watch him listening to people, it's like, okay, Jesus, you need to get in a hurry here because there's important things happening and you're sitting there listening and you just kind of need to move on. But he never does. There's this really crazy story in the book of Mark where this guy named Jairus, he's the local leader of the synagogue. And he comes to Jesus and he's begging Jesus to come to his house because his little girl is about to die. And so Jesus says, okay. And this crowd, they had thousands of people around him at the time. And so the crowd, as Jesus heads to Jairus' house, the crowd follows him. Now you would think this would be one of those times you'd be like, okay, Jesus, we got to pick up the speed here a little bit. This little girl's life is at stake. But as you read the book of Mark, it says, as Jesus walked to Jairus' house. And so Jesus is walking while everybody else is like, come on, let's go, Jesus, let's go, Jesus, let's go, Jesus. And you have this crowd of people, a couple thousand people around him. And in this crowd was this woman. And this woman had been ill for 12 years. She had internal bleeding, and she had gone to a bunch of doctors, but things only got worse for her. And because of that, she could not stand up straight, and she couldn't be around her family because she was considered unclean. And so she decides to throw a Hail Mary. And the Hail Mary is this, I'm just going to decide to reach out my hand and touch Jesus' cloak. Maybe if I do that, I might be healed. And she does, and she gets healed. And so I want you to think about this. For the first time in 12 years, she can stand up straight. And for the first time in I don't know how many years, but it's been many years, she can actually go home and see her husband and see her kids. Well, while she's experiencing this healing, Jesus goes, hey, someone touched me. Someone touched me. And the disciples are going, dude, you got thousands of people around you. Everybody's bumping into you. I mean, you're being touched all over. You're being touched by a bunch of people. And Jesus goes, no. This is different. And this conversation is going back and forth, where finally this now healed woman realizes she got to reveal her identity. And so she goes, it was me. And then listen to what Jesus says to her. He says, daughter. And that word, it's just this term of endearment. It says, daughter, your faith has healed you. Go in peace and be freed from your suffering. Well, as this exchange is going on, Jairus is going, okay, wonderful and all that stuff. Jesus, you could have came back to her, okay? But hey, listen, my daughter has minutes before she's going to die. And so they, once again, start heading to Jairus' house. They take a few steps, and a servant from Jairus' house comes and said, hey, listen, don't bother anymore. Your daughter's dead now. And I can only imagine when the dad heard that news going, you took the time to do this. If you had just hurried up, you would have been able to save my daughter. But Jesus looks at this now devastated dad and he goes, don't be afraid. Just trust me. And so they continue to walk to Jairus' house. And they go inside the house, and it's this incredible scene. Everybody in the house is crying, and then Jesus goes, what's everybody crying about? And then they turn on him, as you can imagine, if someone would say something as insensitive as that. And so Jesus goes right over to Jairus' daughter, and he heals her. But I want you to think about this incredible scene. Jesus is around this crowd of people, thousands of people. He's tending to an emergency, yet in the midst of all those people, he sees this woman and he sees her need. He notices it and he meets it. There are so many needs all around us. But we miss out on many of those needs, and we're unable to see them and meet them because we have places to go and people to see. We got places to go and people to see. But as we see from the life of Jesus, is that he lived at such a pace where not one single person went unnoticed. As we've been saying throughout the series, love and hurry are incompatible with one another. And I was thinking about this past week. I was thinking about this. The worst moments in my life as a father, as a dad, as a pastor, as a human being, for that matter, they've all come when I've been in a hurry. When I've been late for something, when I'm trying to get all the stuff done on my ambitious to-do list, when I'm trying to cram things in. And you know what? I bet you if you thought through your life as well, if not all of them, most of your worst moments as well have happened as a result, because in some way you were living at a pace outside of God's design for you. That's why we need to slow down. So here's what I want to challenge you to do this week. Each day this week, I want you to do something intentionally, I'm going to come back to that in a minute, that forces you, and this is going to force you, that forces you to slow down. Now, why do I ask you to do that? Because there is actually a spiritual discipline called slowing. And in this spiritual discipline, here's the idea. The idea is we intentionally put ourselves in environments where we actually have to wait. You know, some of you pray for patience, okay? And then we just kind of move on and do whatever, and we never get patience. The idea of slowing is we actually put ourselves in an environment that are going to create the opportunity for us to be patient so that we can intentionally learn to follow the example of Jesus and so that we can begin to find rest for our souls. Now, let me give you a few examples of what this can look like in your life. And it's going to sound easy, but for some of us, this is not very easy. Let me give you some examples. Maybe this week, you actually drive the speed limit. And some of you are like, why would I want to do that? No, you actually try to drive the speed limit. Or, try this. You drive in the slow lane. Now, some of you are like, where's that? I've never been in the slow lane before, okay? But you actually try to drive the speed limit in the slow lane. Now, here's another one. You actually fully stop at a stop sign. Now, I know for some of you, you're like, is that a yield sign? I know you think it's a yield sign, all right? But you fully stop at a stop sign. Yeah, Mark, that sounds so easy. No. For some of us, that's not going to be that easy. Here's another one. You actually go in the longest line at the store, and you just sit there, and you just kind of wait your turn. And you're like, I wouldn't be able to do it. That's the point. Here's another one. Maybe you just slow down your pace when you walk, whether it's at work or wherever it may be. You slow down your pace, or maybe something you can do. Next time you go somewhere, whether it be a store, church, whatever it may be, instead of looking for the front row spot, and I know what you do, you're honking and all that stuff to get in the front row spot and praying about it and all that stuff because we do got to open up the front row spot. Here's what you do. You park way in the back, and then you just slowly walk and enjoy the walk into the building. Here's a big one, I think. For some of you, I want to challenge you to do this. Make a commitment that you'll be home every night for dinner this week. And when you're home for dinner, you take your cell phone, and I want you to put it away for the rest of the night. Now, I just want you to do one per day, just one. And if inside you feel tension, you feel crazy and all that stuff, listen, it's because your soul's not at rest. It's because that is exposing to you that you have a hurried soul. So listen, you just keep doing it, just keep doing it, just keep doing it, and practice the discipline of slowing. So here's what I want to do as I wrap up. We've been doing this a lot throughout the series, and we're going to continue to do it throughout the series. I am just going to read the words of Jesus again, and I'm going to read them over you. And so if you want to close your eyes and bow your head and listen to as I do this, if you're online, do the same thing as well. I'm going to read these words to you. Just let these words just kind of sink into your soul. And I hope for some of you go, I want that, I want that, I want that. Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I'll give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy, and my burden is light. Let me pray for us. Father, as we just continue to look at our lives, if we're honest with ourselves, we are just living way outside of your designed speed limit for us. And God, it's dangerous not only to us, but it's dangerous to those around us as well. And as a result, we have a hurried soul. It's not this rest for our soul. And so, Father, it makes sense that Jesus would say, I'm going to help you if you learn from me. You're going to find rest for the deepest part of us. That there's actually going to be harmony in our life. There's going to be continuity and integration in our life. And Father, we want that. And at the same time, we want to be as productive as possible. So Father, this week, I would pray that we would just practice the discipline of slowing. That we would really challenge ourselves, put ourselves in an environment where we say, nope, I'm going to wait. And I'm just going to let my soul wrestle with that. So eventually, our soul will start to slow down. And Father, I think we're going to discover that it's actually better to do it this way because it's the way that you create us to live. So Father, I pray that we would just continue to take steps to just slow down our life so we can experience deeper connections with you and deeper connections with those that matter most. And in doing so, we will truly love our life. Thank you, God, for allowing us to journey through this together, and we pray this in Jesus' name.
Hey, well, whether it was the song that you got to hear earlier, something Mark said about rest, or even that prayer that he ended with, I really hope that his challenge to just slow down hit you in a new way during our time together. And if it did, I invite you to take this link, and before you forget and get into the rush of your week, really commit to slowing down and sending the link to somebody else who might need a reminder to slow down as well, with just a line or two about what you hope they could get out of watching this again. And then we hope you invite them to be with you as you come back next week for our final week of the series, How to Love Your Life. But until then, we hope that you have a great week and bring the hope of Jesus with you wherever you go. We'll see you soon.